I'll try to keep this quick because I think we've been here maybe about an hour and a half already. But just to really kind of sum this up, because before I ran for office, I was on the more of the activist side. I was doing a lot of tea parties. I helped a couple of tea party groups get started. But even before that, probably most of the people in here, at least, maybe have heard me tell my story a little bit about what kind of got me thinking about conservative values and constitutional government. But for those of you that don't, I'm just going to hit on it just for about 2 minutes and then move on. But in 2004, when a candidate said I was for the war before I was against the war, right about that time, 2 of my Marine Corps buddies had been killed, and so I was really, really sensitive to what our politicians were doing and what they were saying, and it really struck me kind of odd that you could have a politician who's trying to get elected so he'll change his mind on an issue like the war if it gets him more votes. Meanwhile, back in Iraq and in Afghanistan, we have our guys that are wearing body armor and they don't have the luxury of deciding whether or not they're for or against charging that next machine gun bunker. We just had a guy who lives in my district, Corporal Justin McLeod, infantry Marine like I was, and I met him at the airport. He's a triple amputee because he's following the orders of people like John Kerry. He's the guy who said it, but he was not the only one. A whole bunch of other people said it too. And it's not up to him whether or not he's for or against wearing 60 or 70 pounds of body armor in 110-degree heat, ankle deep in Persian sand on the other side of the planet, far away from his family. It's not up to him. So I went back. I'm really frustrated with things that are going on in government and just how much control government's taken over everything. And my eyes really started to open up to a whole lot of different things. So I went back and I read the Constitution. I found out why we have limited government. I found out more about the checks and balances between the 3 co-sovereign branches of government at the federal level, and about the federalism. Our government we have a federalist form of government. In other words, we don't just have 3 checks and balances at the federal level, we also have checks and balances between the state and the federal government. And that's when I started finding out a whole lot more about state sovereignty, and finding out that our founding fathers, in order to keep us free, they wanted to keep more government at the most local levels possible. That's why in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Congress, our federal Congress only has jurisdiction over only about 20 issues. But if you were to talk to them today, probably most of them would have you thinking, or try to get you to think, that it really is up to them what light bulbs you can and can't have. But it's not. And there's absolutely no reason whatsoever. I remember we sent like 1 million people to D.C. to protest Obamacare. But that's not even a federal issue. How much more people could we have sent to Jefferson City if that was an issue that was contained within our state? We don't have to go. We shouldn't be having to go 2,000 miles for a redress of grievance. Did you know that in the Declaration of Independence, one of the things that they actually listed for the reason why we were separating from Great Britain was because we were having to go all the way across an ocean to petition our government? Well, according to the United States Constitution, we really should not have to go any further than our state capitals, with the exception of those powers in Article 1, Section 8. So it all made sense to me. I'm starting to figure it out, but there was still something missing. And the part of it that was missing was, well, I see the laws, I see the policies that are in place here, but what is it that holds it together? Because I believe just like Christianity or Buddhism or Marxism or socialism, there's always an underlying philosophy. There's always a doctrine that tells people why they're doing what it is that they're doing. So why is it that we had this Constitution set up like this? Yeah, we didn't like King George III, I get that, but what was it that brought it all together? And well, I went back a little bit further and I read the Declaration of Independence. And because it's worth repeating every time I get an opportunity to talk to anybody, the Declaration of Independence says we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. And that includes your politicians. We're all created equal. And they were telling that to King George III because they were trying to tell him, you do not have any rights over me, especially not any rights that we didn't give you. We're all created equal in that we're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They didn't list all the rights. He's just trying to make the point. Among all the rights that we have, among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So from that part of the Declaration of Independence, there's two criteria, for legitimate government. First and foremost, that government has to be formed solely for the protection of our individual God-given liberty. That's it. End of story. That's the only reason. And we can only have a government that operates to those ends if and only if we tell them they can do that. The government does not have any authority or power that the people don't already have. For example, I have a right to stand in front of my house with a firearm. If I want to, I have that right to defend my property. Because the principles of property ownership is an inherent right. Somebody's got to own it. And if somebody else tells you that you can't own property, well, they're quite literally making a claim of ownership over you and your property just to tell you that you can't own it. So I can stand in